oil and gas sector is really divided into three parts. There's the upstream, midstream, and then the downstream. And so when you probably think about oil and gas, you think more about the upstream part of it, the Chevrons and the Exxons and the Occidentals of the world, where they go and they find oil and gas in the ground, they dig a big hole, and then they pull it out and they bring it to the surface. We're the next part of the value chain. We actually transport it. We have around 17,000 miles of pipeline throughout the country, predominantly in West Texas, called the Delaware Basin, in Colorado, the DJ Basin, up in Wyoming in the Powder River Basin, and then in South Texas.
So Western Midstream is a master limited partnership. What does that mean?
So we're a little bit different. We are a partnership, just like you mentioned in the name, not a corporation. So you can buy units of Western just like you can buy stock of a corporation, but you're actually becoming a partner in the partnership. And so we offer a really great yield opportunity. We pay out quite a bit of cash in the form of distributions. And it's also potentially tax deferred as well. So it's a little bit different because we're a partnership. We don't have to pay cash taxes to the federal government. And that allows us to pay more out to the unit holders.
For the past few years, Midstream MLPs have been performing very well and have outperformed the S&P 500. How has business been for Western, and what's your outlook for 2024?
Business has been really good this year. We actually just had our first quarter's earnings call, and we talked about how we expect to be at the high end of our adjusted EBITDA guidance range and the high end of our free cash flow guidance range. So if we dig into that just a little bit more, our assets sit in the heart of some of the best basins in the US. And we're seeing the Delaware Basin, where about 50% of our adjusted EBITDA comes from, has been doing really well. It attracts a lot of capital from producers. And so our growth there, we're hitting new records every quarter in oil, gas, and water. And then we've been hitting records for the past few years in the Delaware Basin as well. We've actually built, or we're in the process of building another processing plant in the Delaware Basin. We just finished up our last processing plant there. And so by the time we're done with those two, we will be one of the top 5 producers or one of the top 5 midstream companies within the Delaware Basin. The DJ Basin had actually kind of trickled down for a little bit. And so that is back to growth mode. And we've seen increased throughput in the DJ Basin since the second half of last year, and we expect that to continue into this year. Our Powder River assets up in Wyoming have been doing really well too. We recently did a big acquisition, and so we are seeing growth in that basin too. And then finally in South Texas, we've been bringing on new customers and seeing that basin grow as well. So all across the portfolio, we've got growth, and it's setting us up for a really nice year from a throughput perspective and from a financial perspective as well.
Now, speaking of financial performance, you recently announced that you were increasing your distribution to unit holders by 52%, which equates to a distribution of $3.50 per unit on an annualized basis. That's a dividend yield of approximately 9%. What led you to that decision?
So obviously the operational performance that we just talked about has been really strong. But we've also taken a lot of steps over the last few years to put us into a place where the balance sheet is in a great spot, and we just have strong stability for the company as well. So back in 2020, we were actually one of the first midstream MLPs to start focusing on free cash flow. And then how do we allocate that free cash flow to strengthen the balance sheet? We reduced our debt load quite a bit. In fact, we had a 1.5 turn reduction on leverage, and we bought back about 15% of the company's units within the last few years. And so because of that, it's really put us in a position of strength where we're an investment grade company, and looking at the operational performance and where we think that'll go, knew that we could turn that back and return that cash back to our unit holders. And so we had that conversation with our board, they approved that, and that's been the increase for first quarter and then for a go-forward basis.
Kristen, it's been wonderful to talk with you. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.